everybody. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm Matt Brennan. I'm Deputy Editor for Entertainment and Arts for the Los Angeles Times. I'm also the editor of our Screen Gab newsletter. So welcome to Screen Gab Live. I hope you enjoyed the screening. Thank you. And one brief shameless plug before I get going. I would love if you would sign up for Screen Gab, which you can on the Times website. Thank you very much. I'm really excited to talk to the team behind this really exciting show. I, in fact, almost was tempted to ask them not to participate in the Q&A so that we could watch episode 2, because I don't want to see what happens. So please join me in welcoming the team from Constellation. We have creator, writer, and executive producer Peter Harness. Starring Noomi Rapace, Will Catlett, and James Darcy. Director Michelle McLaren, and Director of Photography Marcus Fordor.
Hi.
You have your two assistants on.
Thank you all so much for being here, and congratulations on the show.
Thank you.
So, Peter, let's start with you. Talk about when the seed for this concept was planted. Like, what was the moment where this character of Joe, or this sort of storyline, came to you?
Well, actually, it was. I was on a holiday in the Swedish countryside, in a forest in Sweden, actually, staying in a cabin very much like the one we see on the screen. And every night at nightfall, we'd hear a little girl in the forest calling, "Mama, Mama." And we went out to see if we could find her, and there weren't any other houses around, and there didn't seem to be any little girls lost in the forest. So, and the next day we went and tried to see where she was, and there was no little girl there. And then that evening we heard her again calling, "Mama, Mama," and I don't know what it was, but it kind of, that lost little ghost girl in the forest kind of stuck in my mind. And then a couple of years later, I was asked whether I'd like to write something about astronauts returning home. And I'm very fascinated with all of the that experience, and also kind of some of the weird stories that have happened to astronauts up there. And there was this female astronaut trapped up there trying to get back to her daughter, and I kind of realized that she was trying to get back to the little girl in the forest who was calling for her. So, the whole story was about joining up that mother and joining up that girl and working out how they got there, basically.
What to you as a writer is intriguing about the part of the story where the astronauts return home? This is not a sort of gravity concept where it ends when the main character places his foot back on Earth. So what to you is sort of exciting about that half of the storytelling?
Well, there's this thing called the overview effect, which is what happens when an astronaut gets up there and they see the Earth below them, and they see everything that they've ever known and everyone that they've ever loved in the whole history of humanity. And all the life that we know of in the universe below them, and they're separate from it. And that's a huge experience for most astronauts, and some of them have this, it makes them feel very spiritual and gives them an increased desire for meaning in life, and some people it terrifies, but everybody returns home fundamentally changed by that. And I wanted to explore that, and I wondered whether, it wasn't necessarily the astronaut who had changed, but the world that they had left behind had changed instead. and it really kind of picks up actually when you know, when she gets back home and
Noomi, I'd love for you to take us inside the suit with you. I'm sort of wondering, like, when you're filming a spacewalk, could you talk about how it actually sort of works functionally, and also how it feels to you to kind of put on that sort of iconic look of an astronaut, but for most people, you know, never actually set foot inside something like that.
Hi, everyone. Honored to be here, and amongst my beautiful team. Thank you. Well, yeah, we worked. Michelle McLaren and myself we've had several talks before, and it was extremely important for us to get those bits really as credible and real as possible. I did speak to Scott Kelly, American astronaut, about his experiences and how it felt, and you know, just physically and mentally and emotionally. And the spacesuit, the EVA walk is, I mean, they prepare for a very long time. It's an amazing and a very like specific moment when they step out. And so Jo, I mean, she needs to step out right after the accident. So she has a lot of adrenaline and there's a lot of things going on in her, and still she needs to kind of go out and check what happened. So the circumstances completely changed. So I kind of tried to use everything that was spinning in my head and how hard it was. It was extremely hard. Very hot. It's very, very heavy because the suit, I mean, I could not move in it on myself. I was on a crane, and sometimes we had a whole suit on and sometimes half of it. And, you know, I just tried to work with everything, the resistance and the everything that I had against me, and long hours and the claustrophobic elements of being stuck in it and not being able to fully communicate and having an earpiece and feeling really distant from everyone. But it was a moment that really kind of burned into me, and it felt really special.
I'm curious about your conversation with Scott. Was there anything in particular that he said to you that either surprised you or really helped you find the character?
Yeah, one thing that stayed with me and that I try to practice in my own life is to not let my emotions be in charge of my actions in critical moments. And I think astronauts have been so trained to stay focused and to keep a rational mind where you can still solve problems and not react with emotions. And I'm a quite fiery person that goes quick, and and that's something that he said that they keep going back to what they're trained to do and just stick to that, and they don't slip off track because they can't afford to. It's too risky. So that's something that I really, in my everyday life, trying to do. I was like, remember the astronauts.
Since we're on the subject of space, Michelle and Marcus, let's talk about filming the disaster that befalls the crew in the pilot episode. Can you talk a little bit about kind of problem solving a sequence like that? Like, what was the thorniest thing that you had to figure out in order to make that as sort of seamlessly exciting as it is in the final product?
Thank you. It was a huge challenge. Creating zero-G is really difficult for many reasons. First of all, Andy Nicholson, our production designer, built a replica of the ISS, and it's very claustrophobic, and that's intentional, and we wanted it to feel that way. So we had to, in order to access the set, we had to break off pieces of it. It's built for people to float in, not walk in, so we had to create platforms that could come in and out. And we would take the ceiling off to hang wires, so the actors could sometimes float on wires, or they would sometimes be on rolling chairs, they'd sometimes be on these platforms on wheels that they could lie on their belly, and a lot of the time they would mine. And these guys went under incredible strength training to be able to do that. And while they have all these constraints, they're acting, and amazingly well. And then we also had the cameras and the style of the filmmaking that we wanted to incorporate, which I'll let Marcus talk about that, which in itself had its own float.
Yeah, so we really studied, actually Scott Kelly provided a lot of his private videos and pictures from his journey. He spent 1 year in space, and that was incredible to study how astronauts film themselves. So we wanted, of course, to create something cinematic that feels like a movie to watch, but also has the intimacy of astronauts filming. So we mixed hand camera, we flew specialized drones through the ISS, so it feels like zero gravity, and just mixed up all kinds of techniques. So hopefully the audience forgets about the technical stuff and can really focus on the character's journey.
Jonathan and James, in the pilot, you have to play characters who not only are not in space, but also don't exactly know every detail of what's happening up there. I'm wondering, is that something where you, as an actor, also don't want to have all the information so that you can sort of play the absence of those details? Like, what is the preparation? Did Peter tell you everything in advance, or are you purposefully in the dark as well?
You go ahead.
Okay, hi everybody. Well, Peter did tell us everything in advance. We had he'd written all 8 episodes, but it wasn't 100% helpful because even though I had access to all 8 episodes, I didn't completely understand it. And I was slightly relieved when I arrived in Berlin, where we were rehearsing, to discover that actually Michelle didn't completely understand it either, and neither did our other 2 directors. And then everybody would look to the Bible over there, and this calm man would quietly walk you through it, not patronizingly, and you felt safe again. You suddenly felt like you understood what was going on. But you know, I have been in situations on film sets where the director has deliberately withheld, you know, who done it or whatever. I don't think it helps. We're actors. It's our job to, you know, if we're not supposed to know something, we act it. But you know, you'll see as the series goes on, the level of complexity in the first episode is ramped up by about 100,000 by the time you get to the end.
All right, as far as my character goes, he's obsessed with one thing. He wants his baby. He wants his machine back. He is willing to sacrifice lives to get that back. So as far as me not knowing what's going on up there, I have one concern, and that is to get it back.
Will, I'm going to go out on a limb and guess, based on many hours of TV viewing experience, that your presence here means that we haven't seen the last of Paul. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I'm going to go out on a limb with that. So what reassured you reading the scripts, talking to Peter, talking to the other folks, that there was something that you could really sink your teeth into here?
I'm laughing inside because I arrived in, how y'all doing? I arrived in Berlin and I'm at dinner with Joseph Cedar and Michelle and Peter, and they said, well, what did you think about episode 6? And I'm like, well, I haven't read it. I only got episode 1. So I didn't know, you know, how far Paul Lancaster will go in the series, but I figured they wouldn't fly me all the way to Berlin for me not to last beyond episode 1. But Noomi brought up something important with Scott Kelly that helped me really tap into the role. There was a point where we were in Berlin and Scott got his wife on the phone. And I asked her, I said, how was he when he returned home from space? And the first kiss you guys shared, how was it? And Scott kind of gets choked up a little bit, and then his wife takes a moment, and she says, Will, it was very distant.
Wow.
And that was the moment that helped really shape Paul's journey for me. Because when you spend so much time in space, even if you spend a year in space, you don't come back the same. It takes you time to walk again. And that was the emotional element. Hearing her say that and looking at him, I said, bam, I got everything I need to really birth these characters that people can really look into, and you can go on that your own human emotional journey as you look into these characters.
Have any of you been sort of fascinated by or even obsessed with space and astronauts before this project? Like, did any of you come in with some knowledge about what it's like up there and what it's like for them when they come back?
Yeah, well, when I prepared for Prometheus, I did kind of deep dive into the world of astronauts and being in space a bit, but a bit is kind of double. It's almost like a destructive relationship. You know, you're drawn to it, but kind of scares you. It's like, I know it might not be good for me, but I still want to go there. And it's just like this kind of the not knowing and the thrill of what could be out there. That's kind of where my mind was back then. And now going in, it was very much with a kind of sober, real approach of really understanding. So I watched a lot of YouTube. You can watch them up there now, which is incredible. And they are normal people, and they're so bright and they're so humble, and because they're so good at something, they don't want to keep it a mystery. They're so matter of fact, which is amazing to discover. Yeah.
Peter, Michelle, Marcus, talk more about the sort of research that you did. You talked about Scott providing images, of his own, but what sort of research goes into creating an authentic portrait of both the ISS, of the various nations' mission controls, of what happens when all shit breaks loose?
Go ahead, Peter.
Okay, well, I mean, I think it's in two parts really, the research that we did. I mean, when I was writing it, I did a lot of research about the experience that astronauts have and how it, I was very interested in what their relationship is with their families and what it's like to spend a year in space and how it is to come back. And many of them do come back and they have a lot of difficulty settling in, and that kind of distance can grow and increase. So I was really interested in the life stories of astronauts, and also about kind of some of the odd things that people see and hear up there, because there are secret little ghost stories that they don't really kind of share very widely, but they do exist. And I think it's very important if we're doing something which, as you can see, goes to some kind of weird and wonderful places, that it's the stuff that can be very authentic is. So we've tried to make it as grounded and authentic as possible, and that's how we developed the ISS and everything else.
Yes, like Peter was saying, that we wanted it to be as realistic as possible, so we took a deep dive into studying the ISS and a spacewalk. I put, as did Marcus and Andy Nicholson, our production designer, put the 3D goggles on and went through the ISS and did a spacewalk. And I'm pretty sure if I ended up in the ISS right now, I could probably find my way around. I know way more about space than I ever thought I would. And the real footage, as Noomi was saying, was incredible. What you can watch. I mean, you can at any time be on the ISS with the astronauts, and talking to Scott really allowed us to understand how they move, and also the other thing that Scott really provided us was how things work up there differently from how certain things work on Earth. And we really wanted to incorporate certain things that we maybe take for granted and using one way on Earth as normal, and you use it differently in space. And for example, I said to him, when we're going to operate on Paul, how do we secure him? Well, they're cutting his arm off, and he said duct tape, because we use duct tape for so many things, because there's no resistance. So it was those kind of things that we found so interesting, and later you'll find out we use, I'll just a little tease, we use wet ones for something, because when they get exposed to certain elements, they can turn into cement.
like add maybe there's only so much research you can do, and we actually tested a lot. So our production designer Andy Nicholson, he not only built the ISS to scale, he built us a replica so we could train and rehearse with Noomi, Will, and our camera operator. So it was a really intricate dance to fly the camera and fly doing rigs. We even had our stunt coordinator Martin flying on his wire rig. We gave him a camera, chasing Noomi, and that was so helpful to find ways
Yeah, because it was
to
a
shoot
discovery for us as well. There's a huge amount of pre-visualization too in storyboarding. Everything, it's very expensive to shoot zero G, so we pre-vised everything and edit it ahead of time, although so many things change on the day. But it was very much the training ahead of time and us figuring out how best to approach this. As much as we could do that in advance, it helped.
For the actors, whether it's the space station or whether it's the sets back on Earth, that level of detail and care given to replicating the real life structures, what does that do for you? How does that help you do what you do?
Well, for me, you don't have to act. You just have to feel. And Scott made a point of just be graceful, less is more. And I think Peter did a great job of using those human themes in the show. A lot of times in life, we're trying to force things to happen, but less is more. And he kept saying that to me, like even when you push off the wall of the ISS, if you push too hard, it'll send you 30 miles down the other way. And so that, talking to him about that really changed me in my own life. It's like less is more, take a beat, take a pause. And when you have the ISS built the way that it is, you can just be in it, especially when you're dealing with a brilliant artist in Noomi. She's gonna make you show up. That's just who she is. And you get to, and it's a safe space, and Michelle is not gonna move on until she has what she wants. So all those things, it's safe for an actor. You don't have to worry about, oh, okay, am I doing a good job? Trust me.
But it was also, we did kind of shots that hasn't been done before because of Michelle and Marcus' passion for this, and just kind of taking a corner, floating around a corner. It's extremely hard, and it's supposed to just happen. And man, oh man, we rehearsed with many takes, and we were sweating. And there was one day when I've been the whole day on wires, and then I was like so exhausted, my whole body was like trembling. And then someone said, Scott Kelly here today. I was like, oh no. And I was like, came off the wires on like wobbly legs, and I was like looking at him, I was like terrified that he was saying, you look terrible when you float. And then he just gave me a thumb up, and I was like, okay.
Has Scott given feedback on the finished product?
He saw the trailer recently. He was very happy to see it. And we actually did send him a cut of the EVA. I just wanted to check in with him and go, hey, are we on the right track? And he thought it was pretty awesome. He told us an amazing story that he was on an EVA and it was so dark he got lost and he didn't know where he was. And so he had to stay in the dark for 45 minutes until the sun came up. And it speaks to what Noomi was saying about don't act on your emotions, stay calm. And I will just add that to what Will was saying, you do have to move slowly in space, and it's really hard to make an action sequence exciting when you have to move slowly.
Well, you succeeded admirably. This one is for anyone who wants to chime in. I was thinking while watching this to prepare, just how dramatic stories set in and around space are in our culture. And this is like a big think piece kind of question, but like, what do you think it is about space that makes it a site of compelling storytelling that people want to continue to go back to again and again?
I think it's because, it's hypnotic. It's hypnotic to watch the Earth. But as far as we know, this, where we are, is the only pocket of life or meaning in the entire universe, as far as we know. And as soon as we kind of ventured beyond that little paper thin skin between the edge of the Earth and space, we're venturing out into the unknown. We're venturing out kind of, potentially into a place where nothing lives, and it's just blackness forever. And that, being on the edge of existence like that, being walking, the void between. It's like between life and the afterlife, basically, and I think it's fascinating for that reason. Anyone else?
I don't think anyone's going to beat that answer.
Okay, so my last question, and this is for everyone, so I'm going to go down the row, starting with Marcus. Screen Gab, the newsletter that I edit that inspired this live streaming series, is in many ways a sort of recommendation engine for what people should watch. And I would love to hear one space or space adjacent film or TV series that these folks should go fire up at home in addition to Constellation.
First, you have to watch Prometheus. When I learned at some time that Noomi would be on the show, I'm the biggest fan, so I was like, I'm a big sci-fi geek, so to the on space with you, but especially truly Prometheus, I think what Noomi did is unbelievable, and I always felt like, how do we make this our own? You're such an iconic face to photograph and to shoot, so I was like super excited. I think watch Prometheus.
Thank you, Marcus. I would say Interstellar, a brilliant film. Chris Nolan is a genius. I certainly watched it several times and was very inspired by it.
I might have said that film too, but a film that I saw when I was quite young, that I don't know how popular even it is really, is a sort of weird sequel to 2001 called 2010. I found that really, really effective in that movie, so I'd volunteer that one.
I would say Constellation. I believe that it's unique, and we've never seen space done on television in this way. And to answer your question about why people are so obsessed with space, because space mirrors your subconscious, and it allows you to really escape, and everyone's looking for an escape. And sometimes when you let your guard down is when you can hear the truths of life.
Peter Pan.
Johan Ring is an amazing director, and he has a movie coming out soon called Spaceman that he screened to me because he's my friend, and I got to see it in New York when I was there last time. And it's incredible. It's coming out soon, so it takes place in space, and Adam Sandler is incredible in it.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think if you want something to complement this, maybe watch Alice in Wonderland.
God bless you, lad.
Well, I want to thank you all for being here. This has been really fun. Congratulations on the show. If everyone could just remain seated while the team